Hello Dungeon Divers, this is your host DM Will and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're a returning viewer. On this channel I focus on going into detail on monsters and other fun creatures and give tips on how you can run them. In today's episode we'll be looking at everyone's favorite paranoid Swedish meatball's little cousin, the Spectator. This massive pure freak can keep an eye on any valuables you could dream of, but only comes with a warranty for 101 years. While not as paranoid as beholders, these silly green orbs do show glints of madness that progress depending on how long they've been around. Five-eyed 4-foot football can hang around for essentially however long they feel like after being summoned, so you can get pretty creative with their state of mental deterioration. Now let's get on to the stat block, which can be found on page 30 of the Monster Manual. The Spectator is a lawful neutral medium aberration with an AC of 14 and an average health pool of 39. He has a hovering speed of 30 feet, so initially he doesn't seem that intimidating. He has a strength score of -1, a +2 to dex and constitution, a +1 to intelligence, a +2 to wisdom, and a +0 to charisma. He has proficiency in perception because that's about all he's good at other than killing things. He has dark vision out to 120 feet, which makes sense because after his summoner dies there usually aren't too many people to keep the lights on. With a passive perception of 16, it'll be tougher for lower level PCs to sneak past him, and he doesn't have any abilities, but he is able to magically create enough food and water to sustain himself for 24 hours, so I guess there's that. His main defensive strategy is his reaction, however, called Spell Reflection. Basically, if a ranged spell misses, or if he succeeds a saving throw, he can move the attack to another creature it can see within 30 feet, forcing the attacker to reroll the attack against the new target, or make the target roll a saving throw. This will help balance out its lower ACs, so I recommend saving it for when a caster with a higher spellcasting bonus attacks, so it has a higher chance of hitting the caster or a fellow party member. It's up to you on how you want to rule it, but I think Magic Missile would be reflectable, similar to a Tarrasque's armor. Now, let's get into his actions. He can bite, but if he's doing that, you've probably already lost. With a range of 5 feet and 1d6 -1 damage, your party's wizard might be able to take it at full health. As with most beholders, however, the real cheese is in their eye stalks. This guy has 4, and each of them are basically nerfed versions of a full beholder. They each have a range of 90 feet, and he can use 2 unique eyes once per turn. How I would run it would be to roll a d4 for randomness to help make it feel more organic, however you don't have to do that. The first ray is a confusion ray. This basically immobilizes the creature on a failed wisdom save and forces them to randomly attack creatures around it. This one is great for breaking up the action economy, so not everything is focused on our squishy green guy. The next ray is a paralyzing ray, which forces a con save in return for being paralyzed for 1 minute. This condition means that the creature is incapacitated where they can't move or speak, they automatically fail strength and dex saving throws, and attack rolls against the target have advantage. The third one is the fear ray, which calls for a wisdom saving throw or becoming frightened of the spectator for 1 minute. Basically, they can't willingly move closer towards the monster they are frightened of, and all attacks and actions have disadvantage if the source of their fear is within line of sight. The last ray, which is going to be the spectator's main weapon, is the wounding ray. If the target fails a constitution saving throw, they take 3d10 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. At an average of 16 damage, this is where your overhyped guard dog gets its real teeth from, considering the ones it has are subpar in about every other area. Overall, the rays on this guy are pretty good at wrangling average-sized parties, and with an AC of 14, most PCs with range will have trouble not hitting our floating bullseye. Some of the strategies I'll discuss next should be able to help fight a party and even out the encounter with just one spectator. First off, it's important to focus on the lair that the creature is guarding. What was the purpose of this place, and why was the spectator needed to guard it? Did it belong to a paranoid wizard who feared that after his death a rival would steal his secrets? Or maybe a prisoner is being held in a dungeon, and the king invested in a spectator so he could focus his guard elsewhere. Whatever the case is, having a good idea of what the lair is will help flesh out the fight much better. These guys work as end-of-dungeon bosses for lower-level campaigns, and good mid-tier monsters for higher campaigns. As far as combat goes, the spectator should be focusing on PCs with ranged capabilities that aren't reliant on spells with its wounding ray, and if that isn't an option, the tankiest person in the room. If you're choosing which rays to use, I would recommend this one for every other action. For the second ray after wounding, Fear and Confusion work really well against marshals because it forces them to either A, not approach, or attack at range with a disadvantage, or B, use their big martial muscles to pummel their allies. Because these two are both wisdom saves, using them against clerics, druids, and rangers would be much less effective as those are their main stats. The paralyzing ray is good, but it's hard to choose the most optimal target because almost every class will take Constitution as their second highest because it influences health pools, especially martials. So your best bet is to go with what you know, or choose a different ray. Typically, spectators aren't given much direction after their initial summoning, so stopping intruders and then killing them is the easiest way of disposing of them. Your spectator should avoid close combat at all costs because getting hit with anything other than spells from PCs above second level is basically a death sentence for a meatball. The spectator most likely won't negotiate. It's either a leave or die type bargain with these extraplanar Rottweilers, but that's if anyone in your party can understand their insane ramblings and deep speeds anyway. But again, that's up to you and how you design their dungeon. As with all of the greatest dungeon crawls, one of the best ways to create tension is by draining resources. It should require a fair bit of preparation to enter a well-made dungeon, and yours should be no different. A quarter CR monsters like skeletons, goblins, or zombies, as well as smaller boss like an animated armor, will help get rid of pesky spell slots and drain hit points. Then, just before the final treasure room, our players will see our mean green spell reflecting machine and groan before rolling initiative again. Playing up the theatrics of the dungeon even before they enter could hint at the Guardian towards the end, such as rumors of a vast wealth hidden by a paranoid warlock, or the bodies of adventurers lining the hallway just before the final room. Remember, creepy music and a well-prepared description will go a long way for setting the tone and emotions of the encounter. So, now that we have a background, build-up, and strategies for our encounter, let's talk about loot. Fortunately, as far as I've seen, the official D&D modules have a lot in terms of sealable content for use in our own games. For example, in the Lost Mines of Phandelver, which I will most likely talk about a lot in future videos, the Spectator in Wave Echo Cave was set there to specifically guard the now defunct Forge of Spells. This, in and of itself, was a great loot spot, which would add a +1 effect to any armor or weapon placed into it for 1 minute, and lasted a d12 hours. However, it also contained 2 magical items, a +1 mace that creates an area of light, and a +1 breastplate which gives advantage on saving throws against dragon breath attacks. These fit the background of the lair, which used to be a forge of magical weapons, which is something you can do in your own dungeons. A bank hires a spectator to protect an adventurer's account. The loot would be gold, potions, and magic items. Our wizard from earlier summons a spectator to guard spell scrolls and spellbooks. Really, they can guard just about anything, and could even be guarding nothing depending on how far their mental deterioration is. This could also encourage investigating the history of the location on the player's part, because if the spectator is known to be very unstable or insane, they might be able to trick him into allowing them to pass under the guise of being returning summoners. It's important to give your spectator a personality, so you can build off of this and other potential roleplay encounters. Nothing is better than when a PC asks a question about the world and you can tell them, or lie to them, in character. And that's about it for my spectator dissertation. If you have any further questions, you can let me know in the comments and I can attempt to answer them, and I would also recommend looking over official source material for the spectator to help give some inspiration for your own. Remember, don't procrastinate and make your game great. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and comment what monster I should do a deep dive on next.